There's a moment most men remember but rarely understand. A woman smiles, laughs easily, treats you warmly, and yet something feels different underneath. Not romantic, not distant, something charged but quiet. And if you've ever dismissed that feeling, stay with me, because near the end of this conversation, one subtle truth will change how you read these moments forever. If you find value here, gently tap like and subscribe so these deeper conversations can keep reaching you. As a psychologist, I want to begin by calming something important inside you. Not every friendly woman is interested. And when interest does exist, it often doesn't look the way movies or social media suggest. Real attraction, especially from emotionally aware women, is rarely loud. It's careful, it's contained. It hides in behavior patterns most men were never taught to notice. Here's the first truth. When a woman is simply friendly, her energy is evenly distributed. She treats you the same way she treats others. Her warmth doesn't linger, it doesn't adapt to you. But when a woman wants you and doesn't feel safe revealing it directly, her friendliness becomes selective, intentional, slightly inconsistent in ways that don't make sense on the surface. You'll notice she remembers small details about you, but pretends it's casual. She asks questions that go a layer deeper than necessary, then quickly pulls back. She creates moments of connection and then returns to neutrality, almost as if she's correcting herself. That's not confusion, that's regulation. Emotionally intelligent women are very aware of risk, rejection risk, vulnerability risk, power dynamics. When attraction appears, they don't rush forward. They observe. They test emotional safety quietly. Friendly behavior becomes a socially acceptable disguise for interest that feels too exposed to show directly. Another important distinction most men miss is attention quality. Friendly attention is light and interchangeable. Interested attention is focused. She listens differently. She responds to emotional tone, not just words. When you speak, she mirrors your pacing, your pauses, your mood. Not exaggerated, just enough to feel seen. And here's where many men sabotage themselves. They assume friendliness means neutrality, so they either overinvest emotionally or disengage completely. Both responses collapse attraction. Overinvestment creates pressure. Disengagement removes the tension that allowed her to feel safe exploring interest at her pace. What's actually happening is subtle. She's observing how you handle ambiguity, how you behave when attention is warm but undefined. This tells her more about your emotional stability than any confident line ever could. If you rush to label her behavior, you miss the point. Attraction isn't a switch, it's a process of evaluation. She's not asking, do I like him? She's asking, how does he handle me liking him without knowing it yet? That's why friendly behavior mixed with small boundary tests is meaningful. She may delay replies slightly after a deep conversation. She may introduce playful distance after emotional closeness. This isn't manipulation. It's self-protection paired with curiosity. The men who succeed here don't chase clarity. They remain grounded. They don't demand reassurance. They allow space without withdrawing presence. That balance communicates emotional strength without control. And before we go deeper later, understand this clearly. The behavior itself isn't the signal. The pattern is. And learning to read patterns without reacting emotionally is the skill that quietly separates men who are desired from men who are merely liked. Now, let's explore what it looks like when that friendliness starts carrying a subtle, almost imperceptible weight, a tension you can feel but can't immediately name. This is where most men misread everything, because they expect attraction to announce itself with grand gestures or obvious flirtation. Real, meaningful interest often hides in restraint. When a woman wants you but can't or won't say it outright, her behavior toward you will shift in ways that are inconsistent yet deliberate. She might laugh more at your jokes than anyone else's, yet appear composed the moment someone else joins the conversation. She may initiate contact casually, like a text or a small check-in, then retreat before you respond, leaving a space that feels charged but undefined. This push and pull is not indecision, it's emotional calibration. She's gauging your response to uncertainty, observing if you maintain steadiness, confidence, and self-respect. Another key detail is proximity. Women who are interested often find subtle ways to share physical or emotional space without crossing boundaries. She might linger just a fraction longer than necessary, brush past your arm, or lean into a conversation subtly, but never in an overtly forward way. These are signals of comfort and curiosity, not just friendliness. A casual observer might dismiss them as coincidence, but your intuition knows, you feel it, even if your mind doubts it. That's exactly what she's relying on, the small, almost invisible signals that communicate her interest without words. Her attention will also feel selective. Notice who else she treats in the same way. Friendly behavior is evenly distributed. Nuanced interest is not. She listens to your moods, remembers details about your life that others might forget, and engages in conversations that linger longer than casual courtesy would demand. Yet she remains careful, never overwhelming, as if testing whether you can tolerate closeness without demanding clarity. Here's the psychological reality. Attraction often feels safer when it's ambiguous. The clarity of confession can be threatening, both to her and to the dynamic she's testing. When a woman keeps you in that delicate space between friendly and interested, she's actually providing the environment to evaluate your emotional resilience. She wants to see how grounded you are in your identity and in your calm, measured response to subtle attention. Many men make the mistake of interpreting these behaviors as mixed signals, frustration, or uncertainty. In reality, she is revealing her interest in a way that preserves her autonomy while also observing yours. This is a dance, not a trap. She isn't trying to confuse you, she's ensuring that if she invests emotionally, it's safe. Understanding this shifts your perspective. You stop chasing clear confirmation and start observing the pattern of her behavior. You notice how her friendliness adjusts depending on proximity, context, and emotional intensity. You learn to recognize the distinction between casual warmth and meaningful engagement. That discernment alone changes the dynamic because now your actions are guided by awareness, not assumption or hope. And something I want you to remember is this: the men who thrive here are those who can be present, steady, and emotionally anchored, while still enjoying the subtle tension of connection. They do not force clarity, nor do they retreat in fear. They simply observe, respond authentically, and maintain calm confidence. This balance communicates a magnetic stability that naturally encourages her to continue revealing her interest in her own subtle, deliberate way. Let's go a little deeper. There's a psychological nuance here that most men completely overlook. When a woman acts friendly but is genuinely interested, she will often mirror your emotional state without you even noticing it consciously. This is different from casual empathy or polite engagement. It's a reflection of attraction itself. When you speak, her tone may unconsciously match yours. When you slow down, she slows down. When you express energy or enthusiasm, she rises to meet it, but subtly. It's never exaggerated. It's almost invisible unless you pay close attention. This mirroring serves a dual purpose. First, it creates a sense of connection that feels effortless, even when the subject of the conversation is trivial. And second, it allows her to test how much emotional influence you hold over her. She's observing whether your presence alone can make her feel balanced, intrigued, or alive without having to push boundaries overtly. This is why it can feel so confusing to men. Her interest is there, but it's wrapped in self-control and careful calibration. Another sign to observe is consistency in selective attention. She may notice small changes in your mood or behavior, and she might comment on them lightly or respond in ways that feel like gentle guidance. She remembers details you casually mention, not to impress you, but because she is mapping your inner world. Every little reaction from you becomes part of her evaluation, not consciously manipulative, just quietly attentive. At the same time, she will maintain certain boundaries. She doesn't overexpose herself emotionally or physically because that would make her vulnerable. What appears as a mixed signal is often the result of her preserving personal safety while still signaling interest. If you learn to see these boundaries as natural rather than frustrating obstacles, you start to understand the subtle dance of female interest. You recognize that these moments of friendly closeness are actually invitations to observe, respond, and engage with care. Here's an important detail. The intensity of interest often correlates inversely with overt expression. The more she wants you, the less she may appear to push for attention. This can be counterintuitive because many men associate attraction with bold pursuit. The truth is, real desire often grows quietly and selectively. By the time a woman is ready to be overt, she has already done extensive emotional evaluation. She knows if the connection is safe and worth taking a risk. Notice, too, how she handles absence. If she genuinely wants you, even casual or friendly separation will create subtle tension. She might initiate conversation after a delay, not because she forgot you, but to test emotional impact and engagement. She wants to see if your presence carries consistency, if your attention is steady, and if your emotional equilibrium remains intact even when she does not provide constant validation. What this all means for you is that attraction often operates under the radar. It's revealed in careful observation rather than dramatic gestures. Learning to read these signals without forcing interpretation is the key to understanding when a woman's friendliness is more than just social courtesy. And when you start noticing these patterns, your confidence grows, not from assumption, but from a grounded awareness of subtle truth. The men who grasp this concept become far more magnetic, not because they chase, but because they understand the psychology behind the signals, and they respond with calm, steady, emotionally intelligent presence. This is the silent language of attraction, and once you can read it, you see the difference between casual friendliness and genuine desire clearly, even when it's never spoken aloud. Now let's explore how her behavior toward you changes in social or public settings. This is often the clearest indicator of hidden interest, but only if you know what to look for. When a woman is simply friendly, her interactions with you are consistent regardless of who is around. But when she wants you, her friendliness subtly adjusts depending on context, audience, and your presence. She may be slightly more animated when you're in the room, even if she's trying to appear casual. Her smiles may reach her eyes differently, or her laughter may carry an extra warmth just for you. These are not coincidences. They're unconscious signals of attraction. She will also find ways to create private moments even in public. A small touch on your arm, leaning in slightly while speaking, or isolating a brief exchange in a conversation. These are deliberate choices that communicate interest without overtly breaking social norms. If you're observant, you notice that she navigates these interactions with care. She wants to engage, but she also wants to gauge your reactions. How do you respond when she's subtly closer? Are you steady, confident, and comfortable, or do you overreact? Another sign appears in her interactions with others. A woman who is interested in you will often treat you differently than she treats friends, colleagues, or casual acquaintances. Friendly gestures may be reserved exclusively for you. She might make eye contact more frequently, smile in a way that seems personalized, or direct her attention toward you even in a group setting. These subtle differences are not conscious manipulation. They are instinctual ways she communicates attraction while maintaining control over her vulnerability. Then there's the way she uses language. Pay attention to how often she asks questions that go beyond surface-level curiosity. She may inquire about your feelings, your thoughts on personal matters, or your perspective on topics that reveal character. But she won't push too far. Instead, she frames questions lightly, almost as if testing the waters. When she does share personal details herself, it's often selective, enough to build connection but not enough to fully expose herself. She is revealing interest while preserving emotional safety. Notice, too, how she reacts to your presence in unexpected ways. Subtle signs like slightly changing posture, smoothing her clothing, or adjusting her tone of voice often indicate heightened awareness of you. These are unconscious cues that signal she values your attention and wants you to notice her, even if she is maintaining a facade of casual friendliness. The critical point is that attraction in these situations is not about dramatic gestures or overt declarations. It's about the small, consistent deviations from her baseline behavior, tiny patterns that emerge over time. A man who can observe these subtleties without over-interpreting them gains a powerful understanding of her interest and creates a dynamic where emotional tension and curiosity naturally flourish. And one last thing to note, the men who succeed in this space don't try to read her mind or force clarity. They allow the nuances to speak for themselves while remaining grounded, emotionally steady, and observant. This balance communicates a strength and presence that naturally encourages her to continue revealing her interest subtly, carefully, and meaningfully. There's another layer to understand, how she tests your emotional stability without ever making it obvious. Women who are genuinely interested often introduce small, seemingly inconsequential challenges into interactions. A delayed response to a text, a subtle tease, or a slight change in tone are not meant to frustrate you. They are signals to observe how you handle emotional ambiguity. These moments reveal more about your character than words ever could, and she's paying attention. Her tests are never cruel, they're carefully calibrated. She wants to see if you can remain steady, confident, and grounded even when her behavior is unpredictable. Can you enjoy her presence without overanalyzing every action? Can you maintain calmness when she creates subtle distance? Emotional resilience is magnetic. It signals that you are someone who can hold space for her interest without demanding clarity or overreacting. You may also notice her curiosity about your life extends beyond casual interest. She remembers small details, an offhand remark you made about your favorite book, a story about your family, or a challenge at work, and brings them up later, almost casually. This is not just politeness. It's an unconscious strategy to deepen connection and observe how you respond emotionally when your life and experiences are remembered and valued. Then there's the pattern of her proximity and attention. She might engage more when she senses vulnerability in your openness, or she may subtly withdraw when she perceives emotional overreach. This ebb and flow is not inconsistency. It's a measure of comfort and attraction. She is quietly evaluating your ability to match her pace, respect boundaries, and maintain balance without being needy or dismissive. One of the most revealing signs is how she responds when you maintain your composure. If you do not chase clarification, if you respond authentically rather than reactively, her interest often becomes more apparent through micro behaviors, slightly longer eye contact, more frequent smiles, or touches that linger fractionally longer. These small, unspoken signals carry enormous weight in the psychology of attraction because they reveal trust, safety, and curiosity. It's also important to recognize that these behaviors are cumulative. A single friendly gesture may mean nothing, but when a pattern emerges, subtle mirroring, selective attention, careful teasing, attention to details, and calibrated closeness, it becomes a clear signal. She is interested, but she is testing whether you can navigate emotional subtlety with patience and confidence. Men who understand this shift their perspective. They stop seeing friendly behavior as neutral or ambiguous and start recognizing it as a form of communication, a language of interest that operates quietly and deliberately. They engage with awareness, not anxiety. They respond with calm presence rather than impatience or overeagerness. This is the difference between being liked and being desired. When a woman's friendliness carries subtle tests, careful attention, and selective warmth, it is her way of showing attraction while protecting herself emotionally. Recognizing and respecting that pattern allows you to respond with grounded confidence, naturally encouraging deeper connection without forcing clarity or creating pressure. Let's talk about the role of subtle vulnerability in this dynamic. Women who are genuinely interested often reveal small, controlled glimpses of vulnerability, not because they need reassurance, but because they are signaling trust and curiosity. These moments might be as simple as sharing a fleeting personal anecdote, laughing at a private joke, or letting their guard down in your presence just enough to test if you respond with understanding rather than judgment. The more she allows herself to be seen in this way, the more intentional her interest becomes. Notice how she observes your reactions during these moments. She watches for empathy, patience, and emotional steadiness. If you respond with calmness and respect, it reinforces the sense of safety she's been seeking. If you react impulsively, dismissively, or with overexcitement, it can unintentionally create distance. She's not assessing perfection. She's evaluating your emotional reliability. And men who understand this naturally attract women without needing to manipulate or impress. Another subtle but powerful indicator is how she communicates her absence. When she's interested, her periods of silence are purposeful, not careless. A delayed reply or a pause in conversation isn't meant to frustrate. It's a quiet gauge of your self-containment and emotional independence. She wants to see if your confidence and calm persist without constant reinforcement. This is not a game, it's a mirror, reflecting your ability to remain grounded under uncertainty. You'll also notice that her friendly gestures are often personalized. She may remember details about your preferences, hobbies, or moods and respond in ways that subtly affirm them. These actions are never overtly romantic, yet they carry weight. They indicate attentive interest and the desire to connect on a deeper, more meaningful level while keeping emotional risk manageable. Then there's the energy she brings into interactions. Genuine interest is often expressed through a kind of emotional resonance. She may match your excitement subtly, mirror your gestures, or maintain eye contact longer than expected, all signs of engagement that are difficult to fake consistently. These micro behaviors create an invisible thread of connection that feels natural and compelling if you're observant enough to recognize it. Importantly, her restraint communicates respect. She doesn't overwhelm or pressure. She is aware of boundaries, both hers and yours, and navigates the space between friendliness and attraction carefully. Men who respond with patience, self-assurance, and attentiveness reinforce that space and allow the attraction to deepen organically. Finally, understand that attraction is rarely about rushing or forcing clarity. When a woman acts friendly but carefully reveals interest, she is testing, observing, and creating conditions for a connection that is emotionally safe and potentially meaningful. The men who succeed are those who remain steady, respond authentically, and honor the subtle signals without trying to control or accelerate them. This is the unspoken rhythm of desire, the quiet, deliberate communication that most men overlook. Recognizing it and engaging with awareness transforms how she perceives you, building a foundation for trust, attraction, and emotional intimacy that grows naturally over time. Finally, let's bring everything together and focus on the subtle art of responding to this kind of interest. By now, you've learned that when a woman acts friendly but wants you, her behavior is intentional, calibrated, and layered with quiet signals. She mirrors your emotions, remembers small details, creates selective closeness, and tests your steadiness without ever demanding attention or clarity. Understanding this gives you a profound advantage, not because it lets you manipulate her, but because it allows you to engage with confidence, authenticity, and calm awareness. The key principle here is presence. When she offers these subtle gestures, lingering eye contact, personalized attention, gentle teasing, or small moments of vulnerability, your role is not to chase, interpret obsessively, or react impulsively. Your role is to be fully present, responsive in a grounded way, and emotionally steady. This communicates something far more powerful than words ever could: that you are a man who can hold his center while navigating complexity, uncertainty, and subtle emotional dynamics. Notice, too, how she measures emotional boundaries. She will reveal interest in measured doses, balancing curiosity with self-protection. Responding appropriately means respecting that rhythm. You don't need to demand clarity, and you don't need to withdraw or overcompensate. You simply maintain consistent composure matched with authentic engagement. This creates a tension that is magnetic because it signals strength without control and interest without desperation. Another critical point is observation without judgment. Pay attention to patterns, not isolated actions. A single smile, touch, or text may mean nothing, but repeated behaviors, thoughtfully observed, reveal genuine interest. She may create space, test your patience, or subtly escalate attention, but all within a framework of emotional safety. Your ability to notice these cues without reacting anxiously is what sets the stage for meaningful connection. It's also essential to recognize that real attraction thrives in balance. Too much intensity on your part can overwhelm, too little can reduce engagement. The men who succeed are those who respond with quiet confidence, curiosity, and emotional intelligence. They mirror her subtlety with their own grounded awareness, creating a dynamic where interest is naturally reciprocated without pressure or overt declarations. Finally, remember this: the most compelling connections often form in silence and subtlety. The signals are quiet, the gestures small, and the interest carefully concealed, but that is exactly what makes it powerful. If you can observe, respect, and respond to these behaviors thoughtfully, you naturally cultivate attraction and emotional depth. By understanding the difference between casual friendliness and deliberate, quiet interest, you step into a space of awareness few men occupy. You no longer misread signals, overreact, or second-guess yourself. Instead, you engage with presence, patience, and emotional maturity. This is the real path to being noticed, desired, and respected. And here's the insight I promised earlier. When a woman acts friendly but does all these subtle things, it isn't a game. It's her way of saying, without words, I am interested, but I want to see who you are when clarity isn't given. Recognizing and honoring this creates the foundation for connection, attraction, and trust that can evolve naturally, authentically, and powerfully.